Well, Alan Joyce news that he is stepping down early came as a surprise this morning, but that's not a shock to many given the troubles that Qantas has been navigating over the last couple of months. But is this the end of Qantas's troubles? Joining me live now is the National Senator, Bridget McKenzie. Bridget McKenzie, good to see you. So what happens now with the departure of Alan Joyce? Is it a line in the sand for Qantas?
Well, Laura, I think what we've seen, particularly over the last week or so, is that Alan Joyce's position as CEO became untenable. Last week we saw Qantas actually reveal in a Senate inquiry that they owe over $1 billion of COVID flight credits to their travellers, and they were prepared to have that sit on their balance sheet instead of actually be returned to the pockets of hardworking Australians and those overseas in the midst of a cost of living crisis. We also found out through questioning that he had set up quite a cosy relationship, a cosy kind of retirement scheme where he could push forward those credits, etc., and the shares that he would get from the company when the company was making a loss, he could put them into forward years where they were making a profit and really cash in on that relationship. And I think what's most concerning in the revelations is the significant relationship he's had with the current government and the Prime Minister in particular. And that's what we're going to be pursuing today in the Senate, with a raft of orders of production of documents, not just for the Prime Minister and what he knew and what involvement he had, but also the Treasurer, also Minister King and the Trade Minister, because something is not right about this relationship between the federal government, Alan Joyce, and more broadly Qantas.
What evidence do you have that it's any more cosy than it was with previous other coalition governments? It's always been cosy, hasn't it?
Well, as Mr Joyce admitted, he's not shy in lobbying very, very hard for the best interests of his company, which he obviously did when we were in government and has continued to do. But it is the federal government's refusal to supply the real reason they made the decision to block Qatar Airways, the real reason behind why they excluded aviation from their competition review, having to make a backflip late last week. They're the questions we need answers to. I mean, ministers have put 7 different reasons forward as to why they made the Qatar decision, and no one's coming clean why this was in the national interest. So something's happened behind closed doors, and we're pursuing that in the Senate. I've got a motion to set up a short, sharp inquiry into the Qatar decision. That's before the Senate today, and I am hoping that senators who are actually interested in transparency and accountability will put their feet where their mouths are and vote with us to set up that inquiry and start to get some answers.
Sure, but when you come to the accusation of coziness between Qantas and this current government, I mean, traditionally that has not always been the case with the Labor side of politics, you'd have to say. Tony Shelburne, for one, being Qantas's, chief berater, if you like, and also when Qantas was found to have illegally sacked thousands of workers, Labor was a little bit louder than the coalition at the time.
Well, Laura, this is a problem for the Labor Party. They are so divided on this at the moment. I was on TV with Wayne Swan, the president of the Labor Party, last week. He was calling for the government to actually reverse this decision. Craig Emerson's come out, a former Trade Minister. We've got the Premier of WA. We've got the Deputy Premier of Queensland, all calling on their own colleagues in federal Labor to reverse this decision. And yet we've got this intransience by the Prime Minister in particular to not re-examine this question, which just beggars belief, because Australians right now are paying thousands of dollars more than they have to actually travel overseas.
What do you suspect is the motivation of Anthony Albanese? If the accusation is that he's working to protect Qantas, why would he do that?
Well, Laura, you've got some really big ideological divides within the Labor Party. You've got a section of the Labor Party that still wants to nationalise Qantas, a bit similar to the Greens political party do. And then you've got some other people who are quite pragmatic about the damage that's being done to the Labor brand by being so closely associated with Qantas, the most complained about organisation to the ACCC of the last 2 years. So there's some hard heads economically and also politically who know this is damaging to the Labor Party's brand. And you've also got an ideological bent and I would suggest personal relationships that suggest the Labor Party has been more interested in protecting Qantas than they are in making sure Australians have an affordable and reliable aviation sector.
Yeah, okay. So where does this go next? Of course, you'll pursue it in the Senate. It'll be pursued in question time, no doubt. I think we're going to see a whole week of that this week. Anthony Albanese flies out this afternoon, I think. So, I mean, he said last week that he's not going to review that Qatar decision. Do you think that he'll have to backflip on that?
Well, I hope he does. I mean, let's have the real reason. Right now, we can't get the documents. Ministers are refusing to answer questions. It's why we want a quick, short, sharp inquiry into the specific reasons. And I think, given the Prime Minister's refusal to listen to Wayne Swan, to listen to Craig Emerson, to listen to Miles and Cook and Malinauskas, to listen to Labor luminaries, I'm, begging belief really why they won't support this inquiry and come clean.